Welcome. Contrary to what many believe, the internet is not God and therefore not infinite. So if you turn your phones all the way off, the people on Zoom can actually participate with us. If you leave them on, they can't. That's simple. We think we must climb a certain height of goodness before we can reach God. But he says not, at the end of the way you find me, he says, I am the way. I am the road under your feet. The road that begins is just as low down as you happen to be. If we are in a hole, the way begins in the hole. The moment we turn to walk in the way, we are walking with God. The moment we set our face in the same direction, we are walking with God. Stand, we can sing together, All Things Bright and Beautiful, which is in Worship and Song. Number 1, easy to find for those who are counting deficient. time for announcements. I understand there are plenty, but we will start with anybody on Zoom that has an announcement. So raise your picture back there. From Zoom. All righty. Well, I know we have announcements here. I've been forewarned.
Today starts Mooresville Old Settlers, and there's several lines here, so we put it on and we'd invite you to come out, enjoy the parade at 2 o'clock, and then come join us for fair food and fun and live music and all that good stuff at 3 o'clock here at Pioneer Park, so just right down the road. And a special treat, it's lots of fried food. So if you get Phil to come out, any fried item that you pick out, I'll buy for him. We love our pastor. Did you say there were several lines here or lines here?
So this might be a bit of a moot announcement because people don't use newspapers much anymore. But if anybody has newspapers, thank you, Joanne. The New York Times is going to help greatly. But if anybody has newspapers, if you could save them for us, we're going to use those in the pollinator garden when we prepare the soil. So thank you. And you can bring them to me if you'd like.
If you don't mind. I was on a motorcycle trip with Ned Steele a couple weeks ago, and we were sitting around down at the farmhouse one evening, and I said, Ned, who is the best pastor you've ever known? Hoping he would say me, but he didn't. And he mentioned instead a man he knew who was a retired Methodist minister who recently passed away, a man named David Owens, who who I also knew and knew to be just a fantastic person. David recently passed away, and his wife and friends compiled a book of his messages and writings from the start of his ministry over the years. It's called When We Don't Know the Length of the Race. It's a wonderful book, and there are copies available on the table. Take one if you wish, and bring it back so we can spread it around. But it's good reading, good theology, and will be a good book for anyone who hopes to grow. If you have ideas of becoming a pastor, it would make you be set for the first 30 weeks of your ministry. But
I have several announcements from Ministry and Council. At the end of this month, we're going to have an ice cream social after our meeting. We'll provide everything. It's not going to be a pitch-in. It's going to be ice cream social. We'll have a few sandwiches and stuff. So this will be something to look forward to. Also, we have our series on Quakerism by Max Carter that's coming up, and that will be starting in September. We will be getting, if you want a Zoom link, just notify me, and there are some flyers out around that you can get, and I'll also send out some things this weekend for the general email. So that's coming up that we're looking forward to. And then in October, several committees are going together, and I'm talking about it now because we're going to have book sales. So all of you that are getting books, please start gathering those up, and we'll have a sale for them. So lots of things coming up. Yeah, if you want to, just put them in the library.
Good. The answer to the question that you didn't hear is if you want to bring your books in now, bring them to the library. Leave them in a box labeled books for sale so they know they're not library books. I have an announcement. It has to do with this thing in front of me and the thing she had. People on Zoom are having trouble hearing us often. We're really good about standing and getting the microphone for announcements. We're a little less good about it on joys and concerns. And we are absolutely not good if we have something we feel we need to say during our communion in the manner of friends. So whenever you feel a need to speak for any valid reason, please stand and speak clearly for our friends out there in Zoom land, and wait for a microphone. Offering baskets are at the back by the 2 doors there, and if you would rather, there are many ways that you can give us an offering over the internet. You can send checks, you can do PayPal, I don't know all of them. Anyway, there's a bunch of them listed on our website if you want further instruction.
How good it is to gather in this community, to share with each other, to rekindle our friendships, to look forward to a new year of learning as our children and grandchildren return to school. We live in a culture now that disparages education and those who provide it, who dismiss it as something anyone can do. So, oh God, let us be deeply appreciative of those whose gifts and talents have been directed toward the enrichment and betterment of all. May we not succumb in this day and age to easy answers, to knee-jerk responses, to reactionary thoughts. Instead, may we be grounded in wisdom and experience, fully aware of our needs and our contributions to the needs of others. How we ourselves might tread the higher spots and bring others with us. This is our deepest wish, our most fervent prayer, that our lives would make a difference in this beautiful world in which we live and move and have our being. Amen. Well, let us sing together hymn number 171 in the Sing Joyfully hymn book. That's the blue one. Take time to be holy.
So joyful.
Well, good morning, friends. It's good to be back after our yearly meeting and this Sunday. I remember 3 Sundays ago standing up here and speculating that if Jesus were alive today, he would be a humanist. And so I am announcing the beginning of a new series called You Might Be a Humanist If. In the Sundays ahead, I will be sharing the priorities and values of humanism, which I believe to be consistent with the moral precepts and historical priorities of Quakerism. You'll remember we defined humanism as having a strong interest in or concern for human welfare, values, and dignity. Lately, the word humanist, though, has been used as a pejorative by many evangelical Christians, but I want to affirm my appreciation for the aims of humanism, which include the assertions that 1, knowledge and wisdom are best obtained by studying the observable world using the scientific method, as opposed to words from a God whose existence we cannot indisputably prove, we're taking it on faith, and whose actions we cannot reliably predict. That humans arose through evolution, are self-aware, possessing the ability to discern right from wrong. And that 3, our moral principles are not determined by divine commandments, but by examining the results our actions yield in the lives of real men and women. Simply put, if our actions result in happiness and well-being for ourselves and others, they are moral. If not, they are immoral. Today I want to speak about the first assertion, that knowledge and wisdom are best obtained by studying the observable world using the scientific method, as opposed to words from a God whose existence we cannot indisputably prove and whose actions we cannot reliably predict. You'll remember from high school that the scientific method is the process of objectively establishing facts through testing and experimentation. We trace its origins to the early 1600s and attribute its founding to the Italian mathematician and astronomer Galileo and the English philosopher Francis Bacon. They were contemporaries. For their noble efforts, Galileo was placed under house arrest by Pope Urban VIII, and Francis Bacon died in disgrace, bankrupt and alone, confirming the adage that no good deed goes unpunished. Where does knowledge come from? Where does knowledge come from? I was at yearly meeting 2 weeks ago, and I heard a man say that God is the giver of all knowledge, and that if we wanted to be wise, all we had to do was ask God to show us the truth, to put it in our minds. I remember believing that when I was in high school. So I tried it right before a chemistry test. Rather than studying, I sat quietly at my desk, bowed my head, and asked God to fill my brain with the periodic table. But apparently God was busy helping another high school student because I flunked the test. When I started having gallbladder attacks this summer, did I mention I've been having problems with my gallbladder? If If I had gone to a doctor and stretched out on the table, and the doctor had placed their hands on my abdomen and asked God to cast out the demons tormenting my body, I would have found another doctor. Instead, the doctor employed the scientific method, objectively establishing facts through testing and experimentation, thereby deducing my gallbladder was, in her words, underperforming, which Mike Goss said was the theme of my life. Now let's think about this. In nearly every aspect of our lives, we employ the scientific method, whether we're seeking medical advice or financial guidance or relational insight. We'll seek out someone who depends upon the scientific method to acquire their expertise. When we do that, we are affirming the value of humanism, whether we realize it or not. Several years ago, I was at the Dairy Queen, which is why I suffer from my gallbladder problem. And another pastor in town was standing in line behind me. He said, "Did you know I had a heart attack and almost died?" I said, "I had heard about that. I'm glad you're okay." He said, "My wife drove me to the hospital and they airlifted me to St. Vincent's and the doctors operated on me and here I am. God took care of me." I know I should have let it go at that, but I couldn't help myself. I said, not to mention the helicopter pilot who took years learning how to fly a helicopter, and surgeons who spent 15 years learning to do heart surgery, plus the scientists who invented the drugs keeping you alive today. And let's not forget your wife who drove you to the hospital in a car someone else invented and manufactured. They helped too. And he said, "No, it was the Lord." And there you have it, friends. The utter refusal to admit our indebtedness to our fellow beings for their contributions to our well-being. How can we ignore that? Humanism, at its basic level, teaches us how to be grateful. How to be grateful. It asks us to be honest about the observable, verifiable facts of our lives. Humanism allows us to be appropriately aware of and appreciative of the good things that happen in our lives. To acknowledge that we have been blessed by human knowledge and kindness in no way denigrates God. It's no secret to those of you who know about my marital relationship that I have married one of the finest persons on earth, far more than I deserve. If I were, you didn't have to nod your head, Mark. If I were to wake up each morning thanking God for Joanne, but neglected to say a word of gratitude to her, I would be thoughtless and inconsiderate. It is essential in this life to know when and to whom to be grateful. It is essential in this life to know when and to whom to be grateful. Friends, there are many bright and helpful people making real differences in our world. To discount their contributions is to deny the value, worth, and dignity of humankind. Goodness is goodness. Wisdom is wisdom, to be appreciated no matter their author. For God to be good, humankind need not be evil. For God to be wise, humankind need not be foolish. For God to be holy, humankind need not be fallen. Today, I am grateful, among others, for Galileo and Francis Bacon, who with so many others have taught us not only the value of observation, but the importance of knowing whom to thank, and when, and why. She said, let me tell you about the gallbladder. And I said, there's no need. I've been reading about it on Google. And I thought to myself, surely my degrees in theology and sociology have taught me all I need to know about the gallbladder. And so I told her, never mind. At that point, Joanne reached over to, I think, give me a loving pat on the knee, but instead she grabbed it right above the kneecap and squeezed and told me to be quiet and pay attention. So I did, and got my own private TED Talk about this fascinating organ that I knew nothing about. Now, we men are often guilty of either mansplaining, and I don't have to tell you women what that is, I'm sure you know, or telling someone that we already know all there is to know about something. And when we let go the need to do that, we learn and we grow. So this week, friends, listen and learn and grow. And at the end of your day, when you're lying in bed, you stop and think about your day. And you think of someone who's taught you something you did not know. And you let them know you're grateful. Let them know you're grateful. That's our turn and greet, friends.